The world of geopolitics is once again turning its eyes toward New Delhi. Something big is unfolding, not a war, not a treaty, but a quiet, deliberate reshaping of the world order. India, once seen as a balancing power, is now emerging as the central player on the global chessboard. And what's fascinating is that this transformation didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of strategic patience, careful diplomacy, and bold decisions taken when the world least expected them. Right now, as the US, China, and Russia wrestle for dominance, India has stepped into a new phase, one where it no longer reacts to global events but actively shapes them. The latest moves from New Delhi are proof of that. Whether it's standing firm against Western pressure over oil imports from Russia, or leading the Global South's voice at the G20, India is signaling that its foreign policy is driven by one principle: sovereignty above all. And this assertive stance is sending shockwaves through global capitals. Let's talk about the latest developments shaking the world. As Washington tightens its economic grip with sanctions, as Beijing expands its influence through trade and infrastructure, and as Moscow searches for new allies amid isolation, India has positioned itself right in the middle, and it's thriving. The world expected India to choose a side. Instead, India chose its own path, a path that allows trade with the West, energy deals with Russia, and partnerships with Southeast Asia, all at the same time. It's a diplomatic juggling act that only India seems capable of pulling off right now. Western policymakers are beginning to realize something: India is not a junior partner anymore. It's an independent power center. And the United States, despite its discomfort, knows it cannot afford to lose India. That's why we've seen a series of high-level meetings, joint military exercises, and trade talks between Washington and New Delhi. Yet under the surface, there's tension. The US wants India to align more strongly against China and Russia. But India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, refuses to be anyone's pawn. The message is clear: India will cooperate, but on its own terms. Meanwhile, China is watching with growing unease. Despite tense border standoffs and an ongoing rivalry, Beijing understands India's influence is expanding beyond South Asia. From Africa to the Indo-Pacific, Indian diplomacy is everywhere. Its trade ties, tech partnerships, and defense collaborations have quietly built a network of allies who see India as a more reliable partner than either China or the US, even in regions traditionally dominated by Beijing, such as Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean. India's footprint is getting stronger. This shift is not by accident, it's strategy. Modi's government has been relentlessly focused on one goal: making India self-reliant and globally indispensable. Initiatives like Make in India and Digital India aren't just domestic policies. They're foreign policy tools. Every investment deal, every infrastructure project, every defense partnership is designed to strengthen India's leverage internationally. And now we're seeing the results. When India speaks, the world listens. When India decides, markets move. When India acts, powers react. Let's not forget Russia. While much of the world tried to isolate Moscow, India took a different approach. It continued to buy discounted Russian oil, refined it in Indian refineries, and sold products globally, even to the West. It was perfectly legal, incredibly smart, and strategically brilliant. This not only kept India's energy prices stable, but also made it a vital link in the global oil supply chain. Analysts call it a masterclass in economic diplomacy. And while Washington may grumble, it quietly acknowledges that India's role has become too important to challenge. But what truly defines this new phase of Indian geopolitics is confidence. A confidence that hasn't been seen since independence. India no longer waits for global validation. Whether it's rejecting Western narratives on internal matters, pushing for a permanent seat at the UN Security Council, or demanding reforms in global financial institutions, India's tone is firm. It's not aggression, it's assertion. It's the arrival of a country that knows its worth. At international summits, Modi's presence draws attention like few others. His speeches blend diplomacy with directness, earning both applause and anxiety. When he says this is not the era of war, world leaders listen. When he talks about a multipolar world, it resonates beyond Asia. That's because India's rise represents something unique, not domination, but balance. In an age where power politics often divide the world, India's foreign policy is about creating equilibrium. Domestically, too, this assertive foreign stance fuels a sense of pride. Indians see their nation finally being treated as an equal on the global stage, from Chandrayaan's success on the moon to hosting global summits. India's achievements project an image of capability and ambition. It's not just soft power, it's strategic power. And this power is being carefully used to shape everything from trade corridors to security alliances. One of the most talked about developments recently is India's involvement in the Indo-Pacific. Alongside countries like Japan, Australia, and the US, India is strengthening maritime cooperation to ensure freedom of navigation in the region, a subtle but strong counter to Chinese expansionism. The Indian Navy is more active than ever, conducting joint exercises across the Indian Ocean and beyond. The message to Beijing is unmistakable. The Indian Ocean is not open for dominance. And yet, while India is strengthening its ties with democratic allies, it continues to maintain open channels with Russia and Iran, two countries the West views with suspicion. This balance is what makes India unique. It doesn't isolate anyone, but it doesn't compromise either. It builds partnerships that serve its interests. Nothing more, nothing less. That's why countries across the global south see India as their voice on the world stage. Now let's talk about the economic angle, the foundation of India's geopolitical rise. With a growth rate surpassing major economies, India is becoming a magnet for global investment. Tech giants, defense firms, and energy conglomerates are all lining up to set up operations in India. This economic strength gives New Delhi leverage that pure military power never could. It allows India to engage on equal terms with the West, while also helping developing nations through investments and infrastructure projects. Global analysts often say that the 21st century will be defined by how India plays its cards. And so far, it's playing them exceptionally well. It doesn't seek confrontation, but won't tolerate coercion. It doesn't chase alliances, but builds relationships. It doesn't project fear, it projects stability. And in a world where uncertainty is the new normal, stability is power. But India's rise isn't without challenges. Border tensions with China remain unresolved. Pakistan continues to be a security concern. The competition for resources and influence in the Indian Ocean is intensifying. Yet, what sets India apart is its resilience. Every challenge becomes a stepping stone, every setback a strategy lesson. It's this adaptability that has made India's diplomacy one of the most respected and unpredictable forces globally. In Washington, policymakers are realizing that India isn't just another partner. It is a power they must engage with on equal footing. In Moscow, India is viewed as an indispensable friend. In Beijing, as a formidable competitor. And across the global south, as a leader that can speak truth to power. This rare combination of relationships makes India a geopolitical pivot around which much of the world now revolves. As the global order shifts from West-centric to multipolar, India is at the center of this transformation. The decisions made in New Delhi today on trade, defense, energy, and technology will shape the global balance for decades. And for once, India isn't just part of the story, 'tis the story. So as the world debates superpower rivalries and shifting alliances, one thing is becoming clear. The next era of geopolitics won't be decided in Washington, Moscow, or Beijing alone. It will be decided in New Delhi. And if the current trajectory continues, that decision will echo across the world with unmistakable authority. An authority built not on force, but on strategy, balance, and vision. India's rise is not a fluke of fate. It's a product of focus. And as the world watches closely, one truth stands out. The future belongs to those who can adapt without bending, lead without dominating, and negotiate without surrendering. That's exactly what India is doing. And that's why the global spotlight, once again, is firmly on New Delhi, the new epicenter of power in a rapidly changing world.